I told you I was going to do more than just Ben 10. Hello, I'm Luke Abraham, and you might know me as the coolest guy around. You might find this hard to believe considering my last two videos, but my favorite show isn't actually Ben 10.
What did you say?
I know, blasphemous. While yes, Ben 10 was my favorite show as a kid, I soon found myself drawn to a new show shortly after the end of Omniverse. You probably know it as the show you either love to death, or makes you yearn for death. Steven Universe. Yeah, Steven Universe isn't the most beloved show. It's very much one of those shows that people either love with a passion or hate with a passion. Very rarely is someone just, A lot of people have problems with this show, and you know how it is when something gets popular. If it was just not for some people before, now it's an abomination against God, obviously. I think there's a lot to love about Steven Universe. The character designs, the story, the songs, more of the songs. I think the only thing it didn't have enough of was action, but to be fair, that wasn't exactly the point of Steven Universe. Now, before we continue, let's go ahead and give a big fat spoiler warning for anyone who might have stumbled into this video by accident like a lost baby deer. The show, the movie, the epilogue series, the whole shebang. So, last chance to avoid spoilers. We good? Everyone on the same page? Either you don't care about me spoiling the show or you already watched it? Okay. Rose is Pink Diamond and Steven gets corrupted into Pink Godzilla. There, the spoiler bar has been set, let's start the video.
We're always fighting gems, actually. All gems aren't necessarily good. All those monsters we fight used to be just like us, right, Broll? But they've become corrupted and broken. We have to take care of them, subdue them, contain them. It's the best we can do for them for now.
I think I need to do a bit of explaining for anyone not familiar with the show, just so you know what we're talking about here. Basically, the show is about when an alien race called Gems decided to take over Earth hundreds of years ago. Their goal was to drain the planet of its resources, reducing it to a husk, but one of the Gem leaders ends up falling in love with the planet. So she starts a rebel war to try to get the other Gem leaders to give up the invasion. This doesn't go well and ends with the Gem leaders basically nuking the planet to wipe out all of the rebel Gems. However, instead of destroying them, it corrupted them into monsters. The show then takes place hundreds of years later, following the few gems who avoided the blast, as well as Steven, the half-human son of the alien rebel leader. Throughout the show, they spend their time capturing and containing these corrupted gems, not really having a way to cure them until the very end. We don't learn a lot about what corruption is or how it works beyond just scary monsters, but there are some hints we can take from the corrupted gems we see in the show, including when we saw a gem be partially cured only for the corruption to return, as well as when a gem infected herself intentionally because she's just such a hard ass. So, using this information, I drew up some concepts for what corrupted versions of the crystal gems would look like. Amethyst, Pearl, Garnet, and Ruby and Sapphire. Steven already gets corrupted, as I said. Pink Godzilla. No, the other one. There we go. So he's just going to be inspiration fodder for how to approach this. Anyways, I think that's an adequate explanation, so let's get right into it. Oh, and I'm not doing any rules this time around since I kind of went rogue with the concept. You'll see what I mean. You'll see. Shut up. The rule is shut up.
Steven, please. I'm a gem warrior. I'm not gonna fall. Ugh, this is so embarrassing.
Let's get the easiest one out of the way. Amethyst. Amethyst is a court soldier, which basically means she was created for combat and hard labor. Unlike other court soldiers though, Amethyst is kind of a runt. When it comes to corrupted quartz, almost everyone we see seems to corrupt in a similar way. For instance, we see these two corrupted gems in the forest. Jasper then later gets corrupted herself and becomes the very same monster, and while you could argue she only looks like this because she got infected by this kind of monster, the fact that both these quartz look exactly the same makes me think this is just how quartz will corrupt. So, that's what we're rolling with. Once corrupted, Amethyst will become the same kind of four-legged hairy beast, just a smaller, less ferocious version of one. I imagine she'll mostly be the same as other quartz beasts, raging animals that attack anything on sight, although without the beefy size, she'll need a more reliable way to attack, so I imagine she'd be the only quartz beast to keep the rolling attack from when she wasn't corrupted. You know, that Sonic the Hedgehog crap they pulled and we all just kinda went, oh, okay. The way we'll change it though is that without the focus of a stable mind, she's going to be a lot more chaotic, bouncing around the area with reckless abandon and likely hurting herself in the process. She's kind of like a Tasmanian devil, just a little monster that causes chaos without any regard for herself or the things around her. And to finish this off, I wanted to take a piece from the show that doesn't really matter, but I just find fun. During one episode, Steven nicknames a corrupted gem they find in their basement the Slinker. I think you can guess where we're going with this. I wanted to give each corrupted gem a nickname, one that I find likely for the characters to use for easy identification. So for Corrupted Amethyst, say hello to the puppy.
What are you looking for?
A monster.
What do you do when you find it?
Call you.
And who's your favorite gem?
Pearl.
Why, thank you.
Alright, time to get funky with it. Pearl is probably one of my favorite characters in Steven Universe because of just how complex she is. She's flawed, learns to do better, and has really charming mannerisms in the way she's written. She's kind of got the most mom energy of any of the gems, and it only becomes sweeter as the show goes on.
Looking for me? Pizza Steven Universe?
That's not my baby!
Not to mention her songs always tend to be the most impressive thanks to her VA, Dee Dee Magnol-Hall. For Corrupt Pearl, I wanted to delve more into how corruption can stem from a gem's personality, taking corruption as bringing out certain parts of a gem and twisting it into something awful. For Pearl, I wanted to focus on two aspects: her obsession with Pink Diamond, I'm sure you could guess as much, as well as her apparent need to hoard items. In one episode, we get to see a glimpse into Pearl's storage. Inside, she had copies of her spear, phone numbers, random nonsense. She likes to hold on to things. Combine that with her grief for Pink/Rose, the way she never fully lets go of that obsession until very late in the show, I decided to make Corrupt Pearl into a sort of collector. I gave her numerous hands, giving her a sort of spider form, to grab at and take whatever she wants, as well as a large sack on her back to carry the things she finds, since I assume she won't be able to store it in her gem anymore. Her favorite things to find are both shiny things and, more importantly, pink things. All she does is wander around, stealing whatever she can find and putting it away in her bag, with her favorite finds being the shiniest and most pink object she can get her hands on. I gave her 6 arms to act as her legs, but then also added 2 more sprouting from the bag to be her primary way of picking things up. I imagine she'd just drive by like a truck, picking stuff up as she chugs by. I don't think she'd be a very aggressive monster, but would definitely become hostile if you try to take anything from her bag. Anyways, that's my take on a Corrupt Pearl that I nickname the Hoarder.
This will pass. She'll eventually just burn herself out.
That's what you think. I am an eternal flame, baby.
So for Amethyst, we went for a more probable design. I feel pretty confident that a small puppy thing is likely how Corrupt Amethyst would be. For Pearl, we focused on her personality as an individual, regardless of likeliness. Well, for Ruby and Sapphire, I decided to focus on their intended purpose. Gems are made for specific use by the diamonds, as Yellow Diamond puts it. Agate's terrified, Lapis is terrifying, etc. Something about being blue. Whether or not they stick to that purpose, they were designed for one thing specifically. For rubies, they act as bodyguards, given assigned targets to protect, and the likely choice being sapphires. At least, I think so. They tend to stick together in small groups so that in case of danger, they can fuse together in a much larger version of themselves. Well, I decided to depict this by having rubies become Minecraft.
I'm Steve.
With their blocky bodies, they're essentially living walls that can protect what they decide to with their durable stone torsos and strong fleshy arms. And in large numbers, they can link together to form big blocky colossuses, or, just big walls, mimicking the way rubies fuse into bigger rubies. There's not much to say about this, it's literally just a cube with arms, so I think it's pretty obvious we'll be calling Corrupt Ruby the Block.
I know you're still upset.
Oh, so it's just me.
Of course not. Can't you see I'm completely engulfed with rage?
Sapphire's purpose by the diamonds is to act as a fortune teller, to see the future and tell them how events will proceed, and that's really their only purpose. They don't do anything else. They just stand around and say the future. So that's exactly what a corrupt form will be doing. Corrupt Sapphire will be reduced to nothing more than her eye, which stares and watches at all times. I wanted to treat her kind of like Lapis when she was trapped in the mirror, and more accurately like the gem that basically became an entire building when it corrupted. Basically, she doesn't do much of anything. She's more of an object than a monster. Like a cursed artifact. You can approach her, ask her about the future, and while staring at the pupil, she'll grant you future vision to see the answer. Just don't touch her, or you'll freeze solid. That's really all there is to say. This is my take on Corrupt Sapphire that I call the Eye. Alright, I actually came up with 2 versions of both Ruby and Sapphire. This set goes hand in hand, so we'll cover them both at the same time. For these, I tried to think of things in nature that sort of connect together, so after some searching, I went with rhinos and oxpecker birds. I'm sure you've seen this kind of thing before, a big scary rhino with tiny little birds sitting on top of their horns. It's classic. This happens because oxpeckers eat small parasites off the rhino, which both feeds itself and cleans the rhino. Simple enough to work with. So obviously, because Ruby's the more rough and tumble one of the two, I decided to depict her as the rhino. A small one, as rubies tend to be small themselves, with small volcanoes instead of horns. She would basically be a walking fire hazard, blasting out lava and flames wherever she goes. As for Sapphire, she would fly around the air, raining down snow and ice, basically acting as a living snowstorm. I kind of imagine this like that fight scene between Flame Princess and Ice King from Adventure Time, just two opposite elementals that just destroy wherever they're going. So I actually came up with this before I came up with the eye in the block, and while I initially thought this idea would work fine, it was after I finished the sketch that I thought, oh, that's bad. So I worked on the next set, but I had some free time and decided to finish these up as a little bonus. Let me know which pair of Corrupt Ruby and Sapphire you prefer, the pair where I designed them for each other, or the pair where I designed them on their own. Anyways, since they'll likely be found together, I think the best nicknames for these two would be linked, so I'm calling them the Volcano Monster and the Snowstorm Monster.
Quit embarrassing yourselves. I've seen what you really are.
No, you haven't.
Regardless of which pair you choose for Ruby and Sapphire, I say both of them would lead to this version of Garnet. I wanted to go for a more tragic take on fusion for Garnet, since she's supposed to be the perfect fusion, being a lot more stable and relatively human looking compared to other fusions. I thought it would be interesting if she was also the perfect corruption. This corrupt monster is very lost. I sort of yada-yada'd into mixing Sapphire's future vision and Ruby's unbreakable will into her still being able to see glimpses of her memories. You know, since other corrupt monsters seem to always be in this rabid state. So, in trying to fix herself based on the memories she has, the form she takes is just a messy imitation of what Garnet normally looks like, basing herself off of those foggy memories of what she thinks she should be. Giant tree trunks for legs, a sharp translucent material stretched over her eyes to mimic glasses, and her arms twisted and engorged in an attempt to rebuild her gauntlets. Unfortunately, now in this state, Garnet will be relying on her instincts to survive, and as we see in the show, Garnet's natural instinct when scared is to simply attack. As we saw in so many birthdays, when Garnet is afraid and doesn't know what to do,
I thought violence would be the answer.
So I imagine corrupt Garnet would just wander, trying to keep moving, thinking she's completely normal, only to lash out and attack anything that moves. In this case, I think it makes most sense to nickname her as the Fighter. And there we have it. Kinda got a little somber at the end there. All of the original Crystal Gems who didn't have corrupt forms now showing off their new mangled bods. I feel like my favorite part of all this was the fact that I could tackle every corrupt gem in a different way. Some personality based, some lore based, and with Garnet, my favorite of the corrupt designs, I gotta do something that feels vaguely horror-like. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if it comes out when I planned, then next I'll be working on something spooky for Halloween.
Something none of you are prepared for.
So stay tuned for that. Anyways, thanks again for the continued support. We're getting pretty close to 1,000 subs, so that's awesome. I'll see you all later, and stay cool.